Hi, I'm Russell from the UHCL Writing Center, and this video here is talking about how to find credible sources for a research paper. Sources are places where you can get information, such as books, internet articles, videos, etc. And credible means that experts would agree the information is correct. In other words, the information is trustworthy. If you're writing a research paper, then you're going to want to use credible information. So, here's 5 ways to find credible sources. Way number 1. Use a library database. Here at the University of Houston-Clear Lake, we have this website, which you can find at uhcl.edu/library. If you're not attending UHCL and watching this video, then your college probably has its own library database. To find credible sources, first type in your keywords. Avoid typing full sentences or questions into the search bar. You want to use only the important keywords. For example, if I was writing an essay about chickenpox, then rather than typing in, "What are the treatments for chickenpox?" I would just type in chickenpox treatments. Next, narrow down the results by using the search filters. In particular, the ones we'll be using are available online. This means you don't have to go to the library in person to read the source. Peer-reviewed. This means the source has been double-checked and verified by experts. And open access. This means you don't have to pay money to read the source. You've probably ran into some news websites that want you to sign up for a paid subscription before you can read the articles. Here, ticking open access will exclude those. Look at that! There's 719 results. To read a source, click on its blue title, then the full text availability link. Any of these should take you to the source to read it. The other good thing about using a library database is it will usually cite the source for you. Click the Citation button, choose the format your research paper is in, whether MLA, APA, etc., then copy and paste the citation. Way number 2. Evaluate the source. If you can't find any sources you like on the library database, then you'll have to resort to using things like regular search engines, like Google or the local library. Doing it this way, there's no button you can click to make sure the results are peer-reviewed. But there are some tips you can keep in mind to weed out the sources that aren't credible. First, does the source name an author? Does it tell you when it was published? If you don't know who wrote the source or when it was written, that's a sign the information might not be trustworthy. You can see this source tells you who wrote it and when. But this source doesn't. Second, think about how much effort it would take to publish the source. Anyone can make a blog post on their own website, but it's a little harder to publish a physical book. Therefore, books tend to be a little more credible. That doesn't mean all books are credible, though. Places like Amazon allow anyone to publish their books, and lately there's actually been a flood of bad AI-written books on there, which takes us to our next point. Third, keep an eye out for sources that sound like they were written by AI. AI is an interesting tool, but it has a bad habit of giving out incorrect information without realizing it. Some telltale signs of AI writing are lots of M dashes, which are the long dash punctuation marks. Also, the phrase, "it isn't blank, it's blank." For example, you can see here, "It doesn't solve the housing crisis, it locks people into failing systems." Or, "Wealth doesn't stay put when demonized, it moves." And many others. AI is still developing, so the signs might continue to change over time. Finally, on a similar note, keep an eye out for emotional language. For example, you can see this source says, "Mom Donnie wouldn't stop at making it easier for vulnerable newborns to remain in the custody of drug-addicted parents." Does it sound like the author is being dramatic or trying to make you feel a certain way? If so, that might be another red flag. Way number 3. Evaluate the author or organization. In the previous part, we talked about checking if the source names an author. Another way to check if something is credible is by looking up the author to see if there's anything shady about their reputation. Now, this is pretty hard if you don't know anything about the field you're researching. For example, if you don't know anything about medical research, then the name Andrew Wakefield might not mean anything to you. But if you look him up, you'll see that he's a known fraudster and he's had his medical license revoked. Any sources published by him would definitely not be credible. This goes not just for specific authors, but also organizations. For example, the organization InfoWars is a known conspiracy theory website. Anything published on this website by any person would not be credible. These were two pretty famous examples of a not credible author and a not credible organization. But finding out if a person or organization is shady won't always be as easy as just looking up their name. This is why this tip is a little bit lower down the list. Way number 4. There's a website called Ad Fontes Media that has a media bias chart. This chart shows a lot of news sources and ranks them by how politically biased they are, and how reliable their facts are. Awesome, right? Well, the reason this tip is lower down the list is because, while you can see some of the rankings for free, others are locked behind a paid subscription. For example, if I want to see if articles by the AARP are reliable, gotta pay. There's also been some discourse about whether this chart itself is biased, but that's a whole can of worms for another time. Basically, the media bias chart might be a good starting point for you to find credible sources. Way number 5. Present multiple perspectives. If you're writing about a controversial topic, it might be hard to find unbiased sources. In that case, it's not a terrible idea to use those biased sources. Just make sure you acknowledge in your paper that the sources are biased, show different sides of the argument, and really think about the motivation of the person who wrote that source. Are they biased because of money, personal experience, or something else? And that wraps up this video. Links are in the description below, and for more help with writing, visit the UHCL Writing Center and check out our other videos.